Welcome to the next installation of every episode of One Piece, where yours truly reviews, analyzes, philosophizes, and makes predictions over stupidly minute details of every single episode of the One Piece anime. Yes, every single episode. Today's episode, Morgan vs. Luffy. This episode can be split into two parts. The fight between Luffy and Morgan is the first, and the denouement, the winding down of the episode, is the second part with Kobe, Zoro, and Luffy departing the town. So I'll start with the first part and go from there. In full Luffy fashion, as I've already started picking up from the first couple of episodes, Luffy doesn't have time for things not worth his time. Instead of taking out Morgan, he gets Zoro to agree to join his crew and then cleverly gives Zoro his swords. However, one interesting thing here is that while Luffy could have clearly taken out Morgan and then freed Zoro, the order of his actions shows the kind of captain, leader, and friend he is and will be. This is something we will revisit in the second half of the episode and its review. The order of Luffy's actions here shows that his goal isn't to simply just be a savior to those around him. He wants to be more. Luffy is the teach a man to fish type rather than the give a man a fish type, as we say in English. In this way, Luffy first asks Zoro if he wants to be free, even if it means being a pirate, which in the last episode, Zoro scoffed at because of a pirate's nature. The question Luffy asks is, would he rather die or live? Luffy gives Zoro that choice. He doesn't even assume Zoro should necessarily be saved. I really like this. While it would be apparent to most that Zoro should be saved, even in the situation where Zoro is crucified, bound, and about to die from either starvation or now, bullets, Luffy says even now you have a choice. Certainly, one could say Luffy is being a little bit self-serving, but my guy wants a master swordsman on his side, okay? He is a pirate after all. But most importantly, Luffy can tell Zoro is a man of pride. Even in this instance, unlike we see with his foil Morgan, Luffy can treat even the most downtrodden as deserving dignity despite appearances. Even without his swords and bound to a cross, Luffy treats Zoro honorably. On the other hand, Morgan hilariously tells his men to off themselves because of their cowardice while this is going on. Like I said in the last episode, once again, the episode places the would-be Captain Luffy next to the current one Morgan. And this juxtaposition shows that Morgan, despite holding the title of Captain, leaves much to be desired. In fact, he kinda sucks. Anyway, once freed, Zoro joins the fight. But before that, we get a little world-building education from Morgan. Upon seeing the rubbery defense Luffy makes against the torrent of bullets, Morgan discusses the devil fruits. So these devil fruits, or Akuma no Mi, are these mysterious, legendary fruits that grant special abilities to those that eat them. Morgan explains how they're tied up in the mystery of the Grand Line, but that little more is known about them. Despite this educational corner, Morgan soon meets his end. I'll get back to discussing my thoughts on the devil fruits later, but back to Morgan's decimation. Now, if what I've mentioned so far hasn't proved it, my earlier estimation of Luffy as wacky and silly are no more. How daft I have been. Well, he's still those things, but he's much more, and I love Luffy now. I am sold. If the above wasn't enough, here's another reason to convince you. But first, some context. So one thing I've heard about One Piece is that Zoro is very loyal to Luffy. Just from my casual understanding of One Piece, when I first heard that, I found it surprising and I was very doubtful about it. From my recollection of watching my Saturday morning One Piece, Zoro was the gruff, no-nonsense counterpart to the wacky Luffy. A grim swordsman wouldn't deign or bring himself down to be loyal to a dude flinging all over the place like a rubber band. Quick aside, okay? I've never been impressed by rubber powers in all media. Like Mr. Fantastic, I get you're smart, but I can't take you seriously. And the mom from The Incredibles? Yeah, sure, whatever, I'm not terribly interested. It just seemed more silly and Looney Tunes than Spider-Man or Goku. So initially seeing Zoro call Luffy Captain threw me off. I wondered, dude, you serious? But after watching and thinking about this more, I totally understand why Zoro would be loyal to Luffy. And if I were a pirate, I would have no qualms riding under Luffy's straw hat flag. Because Luffy understood the assignment. He let Zoro get his get back. Seriously though, he did. Watch this. Not only does Luffy free Zoro, he gives him his weapons back. He calls them Zoro's treasures. So Luffy acknowledges and understands how important having those three swords in his hands are for Zoro. Well, hands and mouth. I've watched a few episodes beyond this, and we learned that treasure and what lengths one will go to protect that treasure has a very precious meaning to Luffy. In Zoro's case, being stripped of those three swords was an ultimate disgrace. Luffy returns them and lets Zoro get the last strike on Morgan, who so disgraced him. Luffy returns, or rather lets Zoro get back his dignity, and in fact, Luffy literally lets Zoro save himself where it counts. Perhaps he really is too dumb to untie knots, as we see here. But he even let Zoro technically free himself, equating using his swords to accepting to be a pirate, and so freedom. Which is again really big for Luffy. He let Zoro do all of it on his own power, when it probably would have been easier and less stressful to just Gum Rocket Morgan and the Marines out, and then free Zoro. From the perspective of Luffy being a better captain, Luffy is willing to let others take the lead for their own edification. He's not trying to be greater than just for the sake of it like Morgan, who would stomp on his own men if it could glorify him. From the perspective of the themes of the short Morgan saga, let's call it, Morgan getting cut down is again a perfect end. If you recall from my interpretation of episode 2, I discussed how Morgan being the top, the head, and the leader, and having equated himself to his statue illustrated how terrible of a leader he truly was. Luffy symbolically broke his statue in half, showing Morgan was not worthy of being captain. And now, in this episode, Luffy let Zoro finish him off, literally cutting him down to size, to his proper place. And so the symbolic becomes the literal. Zoro and Luffy have demonstrated how the bond between captain and crew should be, and the success that occurs when that bond is hewn from respect and not from fear. Mutually respectful rather than petrifying and oppressive. So the second part of the episode is tying up all the final ends before Luffy sets sail. Let's call this part Everyone's Big Dreams as the unifying thread. So, Zoro learns that Luffy wants to be king of the pirates, and we learn that Zoro's ambition is to be the greatest swordsman in the world, spreading his name throughout all the lands and oceans, I guess. And lastly, of course, we know that Kobe wants to be a Marine.
しなかったから。だけど、あなたたち二人には自分の信念に生きることを教わりました。
This crossroads shows everyone heading in the direction to grab those dreams they have. Though Kobe and Luffy are splitting up to go their own routes, they have promised to stay and be friends. This dynamic is really great and makes me want to keep watching. I'm really excited for that moment, whenever it is, that Kobe and Luffy meet again. I don't know, I just really like Kobe. Maybe he reminds me of myself, sort of having lots of dreams but being doubtful a lot. It's also why I like Luffy so much, and I can see why Kobe looks up to him. Luffy doesn't seem to worry about the looks of things, and his friendship with Kobe is like his boat. Okay, yes, just bear with me 1 second. I'm not calling Kobe a boat. Maybe I sort of am. Everyone sees a small boat, but Luffy's practically riding on his full-size pirate vessel in his head. That's why I love shonen anime so much. It's not really about the underdog thing or the hard work finally pays off in the end. I do like that shirt, and also as the #1 Naruto fan in the world, that's something I know a thing or two about. Also, some of you are like, hold on, wait, haven't you heard Naruto's like a hypocrite now? I have words for some of you, but you're missing the point. It's the mentality, not even the hard work itself. After all, one can work hard at something that really does not matter. One can build and climb a ladder, a building, and it's the wrong building you're supposed to be going up in the first place. For them, for shonen protagonists, it's not that I will be the best, but essentially it's a fact. You all just don't see it yet. Sure, Naruto wants to be Hokage, but he also believes he's worth that acknowledgement now. He just needs others to see what he believes and knows has to be true. Luffy is even a step further. He seems ridiculously delusional, but I love it, I love it, I love it. I love it. And maybe from this channel so far, you can see how I've been influenced. Anyway, in Luffy's case, I'm sure we'll see some more vulnerability later, but I love the who cares what you think attitude he has. And not only is what everyone else would call a delusion fueling Luffy's own dreams, but we can already see that delusion is also fueling others' dreams as well. Zoro will travel all around with Luffy to grow his legend and his skill, and Kobe has been inspired and freed to be a Marine. In fact, Luffy's big dreams has freed 2 slaves. One literal and one bound for death. One dream facilitating 2 more. And now, favorite scene. This earned this episode's favorite scene from an artistic standpoint. I just thought the dull shadow shot was really creative. I'm actually going to talk about the art style of One Piece next time, and may even make another standalone video about it, so stay tuned. Today's theory centers around the devil fruit, or Akuma no Mi. So first of all, I've seen up to episode 7 at the making of this video, so I do have a little background, if you can call it that, but I'm only discussing what I think about up to episode 3 as best I can. So the only thing I will talk about is during the graphic when Morgan is discussing the devil fruits, or Akuma no Mi. The arrangement is a bit peculiar, wouldn't you say? An arrangement like that is definitely a choice. I, unfortunately, don't have the manga, but on an anime-only interpretation, that cross-like formation is very, very curious. It has to mean something, doesn't it? My theory is that it intrinsically relates to the Grand Line in some way. Perhaps they're even coordinates? I don't think they're coordinates for the One Piece, but coordinates to a big clue to it. That's my best guess. Remember, no spoilers. I'm sure when I come back after finding out, I'll be like, Yadunkov. But for now, that's my theory. Let me know in the comments if you like this length of video or if I should make them shorter. I may or may not listen. I'm on my Luffy type beat. Again, these videos aren't meant as a minute-by-minute reaction to the episode. You can find that anywhere. But rather, it's interpretation, lighthearted analysis, and review. I did a summary, so in case you haven't seen it before or in a while, you can get the context. But that's pretty much it. And it's also a sort of journey diary through One Piece, a journey journal, one might say. Like the traveler's log of a stowaway on a pirate ship, one might say, I don't know. In any case, leave your comments below.